trying to show you numerous authorities have stepped forward and said it's time to change the message. And they've said it in more than one way. And these are very responsible organizations like the National Marine Fisheries Service, our Food and Drug Administration, and other organizations, not only in the United States, but about the world.
So, should people be eating more seafood than we are on average in Western countries like the US and Australia?
The answer to that question is stronger than it's ever been. People need to eat more seafood than they're currently eating. It's driven not only by the tremendous amount of evidence for the health benefits, but also the essential benefits, particularly for young as well as elderly. It is a food package that we have taken for granted, and we need to eat more to gain these nutritional benefits.
And you're saying for young and old?
What is interesting is that when you're young and your brain is developing, the essential nutrients that are there during brain development have been proven to be not only helpful, but almost essential. And likewise, as you get elderly and you're trying to maintain cardiovascular complications, trying to prevent such problems, again, the nutrients you get from seafood are unique, and they once again help you, but in a different fashion than when you were young.
And in what sense are the nutrients from seafood unique?
They're unique in the standpoint that they have been part of our evolution from the very beginning. The beginning of life was in the sea. And it's an essential link, it's a complicated link, but the nutrients that were in the ocean and eventually evolved to what we're using to develop our brain today is in seafood, and it's always been there. It's nothing new. And we have forgotten that. And the caveman was right. Eat seafood. And so we're just trying to return to the basics.
I thought the caveman ate mastodons or...
No. They did a lot of things. Not only did they eat seafood, but they discovered fire. And a combination of cooked seafood, they started it a long time ago. And if they hadn't discovered it, we wouldn't be here. So the point is, evolution and modern science together are telling us that seafood is a very intelligent choice. The problem is we're just not eating enough. What's keeping us from eating a lot? Lack of knowledge, possibly fear of selection, fear of preparation. Countries such as Australia and the United States, the youth do not eat enough seafood. And this is controlled a lot by their mothers and their fathers. We should tell them to give more seafood to their young children. Seafood's not always a very friendly, child-friendly food. How do I eat it? How do I prepare it? Do I put sprinkles on it? Can I play with it? These are things we need to embrace with seafood to get the next generation more closer to this product.
To begin with, if the cavemen hadn't chosen seafood, we wouldn't be here. Why?
Well, the healthful benefits, just think about it. There were a lot of challenges in growing up and going through life. All of a sudden, the person had a stronger intelligence and a stronger body, made wiser decisions, and could run faster and do other things. This kind of exaggerates a little bit, I know, but the point is it does have evolutionary foundation, that seafood were essential to the development of the human mind and to the healthful status that we have today. Development of our food supply, changing of how we eat foods, types of foods we eat, have somewhat compromised that. So we need to go back to the basics, and seafood were the basics and essential things for good health and intelligent life.
You were saying that the young don't eat enough seafood. I mean, how do we know that, and how much seafood is enough?
Some of the measures that we use to reflect on youth not getting enough seafood, we can use the science of development of brain, that's very involved. But something that are more obvious to us, look at nations which their children do eat a lot more seafood. And look at the health consequences of that, which show a very strong benefit. Countries such as Japan versus Australia, for example. The Japanese probably eat 10 to 12 times the amount of seafood. And the children eat those large volumes as well from the time before they can walk. And the amount of particular fatty acids and other nutrients they get exposed to show an obvious benefit to these children. Why can't we have this benefit for Australian children as well? How frequently and how much they should eat is, typical recommendation is twice a week. I can't give you the actual volumes, but the challenge will be, how do you tell the mother? She's making the selections to give her child seafood. What forms does she have available to her? And as a child gets older and they like to interact with their food, how do you play with a piece of seafood? Think about when a child goes on the beach and catches a fish. He loves to play with the fish and kick it all around and play with it. How can we take that curiosity and put it into the food that he's interested to eating? It's naturally there. but we haven't taken advantage of that.
So it's a marketing. It's a marketing role?
Absolutely, it's a marketing role. I think the child has not rejected the product. I just don't think the children have given the opportunity to be introduced to the product. One of the areas that we're working with in the university, we're actually working with companies to introduce child-friendly seafoods. You have to make it attractive, you've got to be able to play with it, it's got to make it a finger food, they can interact with it. And likewise, for a lot of the typical households, it has to be affordable. All of these things we're trying to put into child-friendly seafoods.
And what's the future if children persist, or if children continue not to receive enough of what you say is an essential nutrient?
It sounds scary, but it is true. Some of the terminology that's being used today, trying to encourage people to eat more seafood, based on the science, that's actually a risk if you don't eat enough seafood, particularly when you're young. Risk that you may have a suboptimal development of your intelligence, if you will. We have shown not only the ability to see, to interact, to reflect, all of these cognitive capabilities are enhanced by seafood. Before you're born, right after you're born, and even into teenage years. And the evidence is just overwhelming. The evidence started about in the early mid-1990s, and it's just to get stronger annually. And I was skeptical when the evidence first started coming out, but it's become overwhelming now to the point it turned into a good idea, has now turned into it's a big concern if you don't eat it. So that's how serious we are.
How much unanimity is there amongst the scientific community about the essentiality of having communities eat more seafood? Do all scientists basically agree we need to eat more seafood?
Not all scientists agree. They have different levels of support. But where the disagreements come out is not so much that you should not eat seafood. I have not heard anybody say you should not eat seafood. They might talk about the type of seafood you eat, or the volume you eat, or how you eat it. There's where the disagreements come. And really, it's so no one has come out and taken an adamant stand from the scientific community against eating a seafood. And that's a profound statement. No one has said no. The key word that really keeps everybody, even the people that want to argue about amounts and types, is balanced diversity. And that's where seafood comes in. All due respects to the chickens and the cows and other products we eat, but when you go to eat seafood, you've got so many choices, so much diversity. But when you go to eat beef and chicken, you're eating beef and chicken. So that's why seafood differences will typically go away when you talk about diversity and balance and selection.